Hello and welcome to What a Hit Son, the Retro Football Podcast for Retro Football fans, episode 3. Delighted to have Martin Richardson, Manchester United fan, with me today. How are you, Martin?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me on the show. Nice to know that you got the intro right third time lucky there, I think.
Oh, I know, yeah, I got it nailed on today. I've been practicing it all morning. Do you like the old backdrop?
Very nice, yeah, that's nice. You must have friends in high places to get that turned around so quickly.
Well, we had a few teething problems with it. Obviously, in the last one, it fell down. And when I first took a picture of it and showed everyone, I was like that, like, we're ready. That's why I'm sitting back now, because before it looked like it said, what a shit. Well, we can't have that. Yeah,
that's a different podcast. Yeah,
yeah. If you're going to go viral, you want it for the right reasons. So, at the beginning of What a Hit Son, I always ask the guests to choose a team and a manager. The manager doesn't have to have managed the team you chose. Chris Kirkland and Tom both chose 2. Make up the rules as they go along, didn't they? But yeah, they both had 2. So if you want 2, including Alex Ferguson, you can have another one.
Yeah, I suppose I'd only have to go with Alex Ferguson. I think Man United obviously be my team that I'd choose, yeah. And Alex Ferguson is pretty much the manager that was through my sort of journey on football, I suppose, from being starting out as a Man United fan to where we are today. And I don't think anyone's sort of come close to that yet. So
yeah,
I liked Wenger for a few years when Arsenal was sort of so bad, but just Alex Ferguson, I think.
Alex Ferguson. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start on in a minute on your sort of origins of your love for football, but that seems to be the theme at the beginning of the last 2. So we'll start a bit different today. We'll do a provisional Manchester United Premier League all-time 11. I mean, a lot of those positions probably pick themselves, so I wouldn't say it's too difficult. We'll do a provisional. You can choose which system you like. I'm like Mike Bassett. I'll go 4-4-2, but you can do what you want.
Okay. So I've got a whole team. You want me to reel it off?
Yeah, just reel it off. I mean, I'll jump in if you need me.
Okay, all right. I suppose goalkeeper. I mean, Peter Schmeichel was obviously was brilliant for Man United, and Van der Sar was equally as sort of prolific in goal, so to speak, with just being amazing. But I suppose Peter Schmeichel for me would be my goalkeeper.
Yeah,
just a bit of a legend as well. Yeah, that would be my between the sticks. Centre backs, I'll go 4-4-2 as well, Ben, just to clarify. I'll go 4-4-2. I suppose centre backs I loved Jaap Stam just because he looked like an absolute psycho as well as being a very good player. And I was gutted when he left. It all came out in the book, like why he was off and rubbing up Ferguson the wrong way. And
yeah, I heard about all that. Yeah, I read about it.
Yeah, and then to go to Lazio as well, it's sort of what a sort of weird choice of team to go to. But yeah. So I'd probably have Jaap Stam. I'd probably say it's a toss up between Steve Bruce and Rio Ferdinand probably. But I'll stick to the early 90s. I'll say Steve Bruce just because he was a legend as well and helped win the first Premier League.
Love Bruce. I don't think Steve Bruce was ever a child. He always looks the same age.
He's definitely one of those people that you see they say they're 28 and they look about 50. So like Benjamin Button, but without any of the progression from either end. But yes, I suppose right back I'd have to say Gary Neville just because of his longevity playing at the club. And we had a few stinkers. I'd say left back, I'd go Dennis Irwin.
Yeah, love Irwin.
Absolute, like a demon on free kicks as well. You just sort of, in an age where you had so many great free kick takers, there's a queue at Old Trafford to take the free kicks and he still managed to sort of front of it.
And he took penalties as well, didn't he, Irwin?
Yeah, I think he might have even just sort of his goal record looked pretty decent for a sort of defender. The Shy Man, I think, as he's known, or it's probably massively incorrect. I'm showing myself on the fan, but I suppose that's my back four and goalkeeper. Midfield, I'm going to say Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm going to put him in midfield. So obviously now I know he's forward, but he started off on the wing, so I'll have him on one side. Probably I've got to have Giggsy on the other side, just to sort of they can both play those roles. You know, I want a bit of stability in this team. You know, if we're going to win anything, we've got to have stability on the wing. Centre midfield, yeah, I'm going to be really boring and really safe. I think I'd probably go with like Roy Keane, and then Paul Scholes. I think just for that sort of. He's got better as he retired. So, like, at the time he was great, but since he's retired, he's like Pele and Maradona all combined into one. So
yeah, fantastic.
I'd say that's a pretty decent midfield.
That's a great midfield. So as Ronaldo's concerned, the evolution of Cristiano Ronaldo is actually amazing, because when he came to United, he wasn't up to much, as in like he did that one trick all the time, didn't he? The step over. And you didn't really know whether he was going to make it or not, really. And then all of a sudden, boom. And now he's like one of the greatest players ever.
I think if you look at him early on in his United career, his teeth were awful. So as soon as he got them fixed, I think he could concentrate on the game a bit more. And he was worried what he's looking like on match of the day and that, I think.
He just became fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, obviously, he's probably like, more of a legend for going to Real Madrid and sort of, you know, scoring like 700 goals or, you know, whatever the record is he's got over there. And it's just amazing that he played for Man United, and like, yeah, sort of Ferguson, and I think it's probably like Carlos Queiroz sort of spotted that talent, you know, at Sporting Lisbon, and brought him to the Premier League. Like, you always wanted Messi to come to the Premier League just for the fact that you could watch him on Match of the Day and see him on a Sunday, like, you know, Super Sunday. So it's great that he played for United, and he's like another brilliant number 7 that played for the club. So so I suppose if I move on to my strikers, and then it's really tough because Eric Cantona gets a place in my team all day long just because he's an absolute hero of mine. It's who plays alongside him. I think like Rooney's obviously a massive goal scoring threat. He's scored loads of goals. He's like England captain. He's like the record goal scorer for England. It's just a bit of doubt with him because he's so like sort of outspoken about sort of leaving and all those bits and pieces. So I think I'll go with Andy Cole just because he was brilliant. He's just like he was like sort of like slated as like a donkey, but like if you look at his goals and the goals he scored, he was brilliant. And
I love him.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. So I don't know how we get on with Eric Cantona, just them two up front without Dwight York sort of waiting in the wings. But yeah, that's my team. I think. Yeah.
I think Cole was absolutely brilliant. And some of the quality of Cole's goals, especially when he played with Dwight York, them two just sort of gelled, didn't they? Absolutely ready.
They were just like, I think it was like Champions League game against Juventus, and we were sort of 1-0 down, or like I think we were trailing anyway, and then they just sort of turned it around massively. I think Keane scored in that game as well, and I think it was just like when you need goals, that team always came up with the goods. Like there was not very many games that we sort of lost because we couldn't score. It was generally we lost because the referee had given a penalty against us.
Every game against United back in those days, for any team, domestically especially, was a cup final. Yeah. Because United were just, under Ferguson, were just something else.
It's a shame, really. It's lost that a little bit now. Like people, like teams probably look to like Man City and maybe, you know, dare I say Liverpool, for that sort of like we're playing the biggest team in the country sort of thing. So yeah, it's a shame we've lost our edge with Fergie on the sidelines, because it's always like having a 12th man when we're playing. Like you never feared any team, regardless of who it was: Real Madrid, Juventus, Bayern Munich, you know, Burnley. What you're going to win,
So, so for me, when I sort of inadvertently bumped into Match of the Day when I was a kid, I wasn't really into football. I wanted to be a Ghostbuster, really. Still do. But I was up late one night, Match of the Day come on. I remember it's 94-95 season, and Crystal Palace lost at home to Liverpool 6-1 on the same day. I remember like Jan Molby, Ian Rush, there was young McManaman, Fowler, David James in goal. Chris Armstrong scored for Palace as well, I remember. And in that same episode, Jurgen Klinsmann done the diving celebration on his debut for Spurs. I think United played QPR and won 2-0, I think. But that's how I sort of like all of a sudden I was like, wow, boom, what's that? Football, fantastic. So how did it sort of start for you? What are your earliest memories of how you got into football and like the players that were sort of your icons around that time?
I suppose, weirdly, my mum got me into football. Just by, I think it must have been, I think there's like an advert in the local paper. So Christ knows what the publication was called at the time. But say for instance, the Thanet Gazette.
Yeah.
There's an advert in there to do sort of under-9s football at Margate. So it was a Friday night training sessions at Tivoli Park in Margate. I think my mum and dad looked at it as an opportunity possibly to sort of keep me quiet or keep me away from it for an hour and a half on the play.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into like playing football, but and sort of playing at school and stuff like that with, you know, anything you can get your hands on in terms of like a football, you know, like even if it's like one of those airflow balls, you know, that just sort of breaks off.
They were awful.
In the winter as well, someone wraps it in masking tape and it gets you in the head or like that. It's just like absolute, yeah, like a dangerous sport to play really. So I think that was the attraction. But I suppose Man United, my dad turned me on to Man United. He's sort of classic, obviously, like most Man United fans. He comes from London, and he grew up he was sort of a young man, sort of early 20s in the 60s when he saw like George Best and Dennis Law, Bobby Charlton playing against like teams like Spurs and West Ham and Arsenal, and he just said they always looked like they was enjoying themselves, like the Man United players always looked like they were playing with a smile on their face. And obviously they've got a rich history, you know, the Munich air disaster and, you know, like just being sort of coming from the rubble and rising back up again like they did. So yeah, it was, I mean, it's a great choice. I mean, I'd been spoilt since, you know, 1992, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a bit more of a shock to the system being a Man United fan now. I don't know what the score is at the moment. I think it's like we're drawing with West Brom at the moment. So I don't know if we've gone behind or have a look at that in a bit. But yeah, I saw it
1-0 down. But obviously I was going through a few notes and stuff, so I haven't really been watching it. But I saw it went 1-0 down quite quickly. Was it a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, West Ham went 1-0 up, and then Fernandez has scored. Like great volleyball to all accounts. But apparently, like we got a penalty overturned. So I don't know what that's all about. They're only getting penalties.
Why has that happened?
A glitch in the matrix or something, mate. But yeah, so yeah, Margate under 9s, and my dad really sort of got me into football. And yeah, at that time, actually, my first like experience of going in football training with Margate, my mum's friend sort of donated her son's football kits to me. He was like 3 or 4 years old. It was a Liverpool kit. It was the old red and grey candy, you know, the whatever that Liver Bird is, or like that kit, and then the candy. So I wore it, you know, blissfully unaware of the rivalry. So
decent shirts, those candy ones.
Well, yeah, I suppose you're asking who you support. You like Man United with a Liverpool shirt on. You probably get that.
So United pretty quickly dominated the Premier League the first 2 seasons, and then Blackburn sort of won the league despite United's best efforts against West Ham on the last day of the season. Andy Cole and co just couldn't seem to score despite Blackburn losing. The next season, Alan Hansen was very it's notorious what he said. You can't win anything with kids, because United lost 3-1 on the first day of the season to Villa. Even though young David Beckham did score that day. So on that sentiment, that day there were a few youngsters playing. I'm going to give you the names and just tell us like what you think about their time at the club, how it evolved, and what you and that really. So we're going to start with Nicky Butt.
Yeah, Nicky Butt is like just one of those. Like there's one at every school. It's just like he's quite small and quite sort of. You didn't think much of him, but you wouldn't want to have an argument with him. You know, like he just looked like the sort of kid you just stay away from in the playground. Like mum and dad would say, look, don't, you know, whatever. If he wants your lunch, like just give it to him. Just don't even mess. But I think the sort of memory from Nicky Butt was that he didn't play in the Champions League. He didn't play in the FA Cup final because Ferguson said to him, like, I've got the perfect game for you in a few weeks' time. So he sort of. That management of like those younger players, even, you know, like talking like 20 odd years ago, 20, 30, 25 years ago, was so great because he shone in that Champions League final because Keane wasn't playing because he's banned. So
Yeah.
he just did a job. And like so many Man United players, really, like Dennis Irwin, Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce, Nicky Butts, even Phil Neville to a certain utility player, John O'Shea, those sort of players. They just do a job, and they don't really get the massive plaudits that they probably should. They were, I think he represented England. I don't know how many times Nicky Butt played for England, but
yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
Did he play for England or not? But he's still a great player. He's won loads of trophies, and he's doing well at United now with his role at the club. And yeah, he's fantastic. Really, great servant.
Yeah, I always thought he was very hardworking, Nicky Butt, and come up with the occasional important goal as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like out of nowhere as well. Like just wow, didn't know he could shoot. Yeah.
So next would be Paul Scholes. He evolved into one of the greatest midfielders of all time, really. His passing range was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you, I think he's probably got better. You look back on 30 years ago and you go, oh, that play, he was absolutely amazing. And at the time, it was like he was good. He was a really solid player. Yeah. But I think Scholes was brilliant. I think if you've got people like Xavi, Barcelona great, saying that he's one of his favourite midfielders of all time, then that's not a bad compliment to have for a player.
I think he's got to be up there, Scholes.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. Fantastic. Just the goals he scored as well. He didn't seem to score like tap-ins or anything like that. They're always 35-yarders. You think how's he he's so small, how can he kick the ball that hard or that accurate? And the thing I like about him is that he just looks like he is. They're all men and humans playing football, but he's just a really normal bloke. He's he'd probably do that for a wage like a YTS player would get all the way through his career, wouldn't he? He'll pay the subs to play, sort of thing.
Just loves it. Yeah.
There's another player like England at that level, because of Lampard and Gerrard and those sorts of players. He's sort of under the radar a little bit and was probably realistically one of the missing links for certain teams to sort of bring him in and gel the other players together because he was great. He was really good.
So yeah, and he come back for United, didn't he? Retired and then came back.
Yeah, I think he just realised that he couldn't do anything else, and if he could still fit enough to play at that level, then why wouldn't you? It's just like me and you. If we were footballers, we'd play until we were 60, 70, until we couldn't stop because you love it so much, you just can't think of anything else. And that's why I like him. He's a fan of the game, and he wanted to come back. So. Yeah, maybe got a few extra quid for coming back as well. I don't know, maybe his skin or something.
Well, I watched the season review of that because obviously that was Ferguson's last season as well. And how Ferguson just shows what a manager he was. If you look at that team, it wasn't the best United team. It was sort of aging, and Van Persie was in it, obviously, but it wasn't and he still won the league. It just goes to show how good a manager Ferguson was. But it wasn't Moyes had a really tough job coming in with that squad, really.
He did, and I think another masterstroke from Ferguson. Wenger, unfortunately, I respect Arsene Wenger. I think what he did to English football, coming in and changing the sort of mentality of the players from going out on a Tuesday and a Thursday night to sort of eating pasta or whatever, food that they'd never heard of or anything like that. And he, at the end, the fans, both sides, they were both on the sides of the fence with Wenger, weren't they? They were sort of I hate him now, he's rubbish and he needs to go, but he was great. Whereas Ferguson, he had little patches. I remember people saying he should go now, it's time to go in early 2000s or mid 2000s, and he rebuilt that team time and time again. But I think even he couldn't magic that. Ben, so I just got to go and get the door.
All right, mate, you crack on. So this is the beauty of live podcasts, everybody. So yeah, just wait for Richie to Martin. Called him Richie because his name's Martin Richardson, so we nickname Richie. Short and it's clever. Just trying to go fill the time up.
Sorry, Amazon delivery. It's the world we live in now. The door's constantly knocking. So I'm really, really sorry about that.
That's great. Great for the reel, the old blooper reel.
So Ferguson leaving at the time he did was obviously masterclass. That team was aging. Van Persie, I think he was gutted because I think he signed on for United, thinking that he's going to be there for a couple more years. So
yeah. So next up, David Beckham.
It's really difficult for me with David Beckham because he scored that goal against Greece, and we went to the European Cup. Well, no, was it European Finals, Euro 2004, or was it World Cup? I can't remember.
It was World Cup 2002, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, of course it was. Yeah, and that's a legendary moment. Like, I remember being in a pub in Ramsgate.
Were you in Ramsgate? I was in the Waverley in Margate, hotspot.
Oh, nice. Those good old days. It was cheaper in there, that's for sure. I think I played football, something like that, and the team I played for went out afterwards in Ramsgate. So I just watched it and got covered in beer and, like, you know, never been drowned in a pint and been so happy. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it was great. I think he's a little bit overrated as a sort of as one of the legends for Man United. I think he did some really, really excellent stuff. He scored from the halfway line, and you know, he scored some brilliant goals, and he was great. Like, don't get me wrong, he was a fantastic player, but sort of for me, yeah, he was always like just a really good player. Not like I wouldn't want him in my fantasy 11 unless, you know, someone was injured or something like that.
Okay, so yeah, but dead ball wise, surely he must be one of the best dead ball deliverers the country's ever seen.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a very specialist sort of skill, isn't it? And he nailed it. But I think for me recently, I watched, because I've obviously been doing a lot of reruns of old classics and stuff like that. I watched some of the World Cup 2002 World Cup. I think it was England versus Argentina, and we won like 1-0 or something like that. I watched it. It was a classic game, and it wasn't a classic game. It was rubbish. Like, and I watched him play. Like, I just watched him specifically because I thought, oh, like this is in his like pomp, you know. This is when he was top of the game, and he didn't really do much. Do you know what I mean? He was sort of pretty poor passing, like all that sort of stuff. And I think that's why he's sort of in my mind now. I'm sort of thinking maybe he's a little bit overrated.
Was that with his penalty? Because the penalty weren't that great.
Yeah, that's right. He just smashed it, didn't he? And it's sort of like, yeah, it could have gone anywhere really. Like, it's more luck than judgment, I think. And
yeah, it wasn't a great penalty, but the whole country went mental regardless. But I watched that game not that long ago, and I couldn't believe that it was Pochettino that fouled him. Pochettino with long hair. I was like, yeah.
He was like a nice little girl, didn't he? Like, I know I shouldn't say that. You're a Spurs fan. He's obviously a god where you come from, but yeah.
But yeah, it was just strange.
It was like that. It was a bit of a nothing game, and I thought, I don't know, like a player like Eric Cantona, say for instance, on that stage, if he needed something, he's the sort of bloke that could turn it around. So I suppose, you know, for me, Cantona's always been like the benchmark of what I describe as quality, and he was close, but not no cigar with Beckham. Sorry, Dave, if you're listening. Obviously, you're a legend, mate, but yeah, not quite good enough for my team, I'm afraid.
That's what it's about, opinions, mate. So, next one up, you mentioned earlier, he's a bit part player, Phil Neville.
Yeah. Phil Neville, yeah, he's sort of, he's just there, isn't he? Like Phil is, you know, like Gary's brought him along. So this is my younger brother, and like, you know, he's getting picked on. Can he play for the team? I think being at United obviously is a massive sort of deal. You know, like playing for Manchester United, you're under the spotlight, you're under the scrutiny, and like he famously in that FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal in the treble-winning year, like he's the guy that gave the penalty away. And I watched interviews of him like recently, and well, not that recently, but he's been interviewed about it. And I watched it recently, and he's saying like for him that was it. He thought his career was over. Like he's already on the edge of like doubting himself, I suppose, at being such a big club. But you know, like Schmeichel saving it, I think he runs over to him and like tries to give him a kiss and a cuddle, and like Schmeichel's like, you know, get off, we've got to try and win the game, you moron. Like it's 91st minute. But again, like, you know, then he went to Everton, and he was brilliant for them. Like he's like revitalised, like captain, just like he took all that experience from Man United and like used it, and he turned into like one of their best players. And
yeah, he's a fantastic servant for Everton. Really,
yeah, good. Definitely. And I know he's doing his coaching and stuff like that. I think he's a bit Marmite. I don't think everyone's sort of sold on him as a sort of fantastic coach. He's managing David Beckham's team, isn't he? Into Miami, is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because he was the England women's, wasn't he, at one point?
Yeah, I mean, they got to the semis, like I think that was last year or the year before last. You know, I keep saying last year, thinking that last year was a normal year, but obviously last year doesn't even count. That's why Liverpool in the league doesn't count last year.
Yeah, I said that on the last one with Tom. I was like, I thought a game was last season, but I didn't even know. Like it said, you don't even know what was last season and what wasn't.
Well, it's like this season now. It's like the game on every day. It's sort of like before you know, we're doing our Premier League prediction thing. Like I'm firing across like 30 fixtures at a time, and people are like, "That's 1 week."
Exactly. It is good for a football fan. Like today, like what's on today? Like 4 games on today or whatever, and like a few on yesterday as well.
Yeah,
football.
Yeah, if you like football, it's brilliant. Like for everyone else, it's terrible because they're probably like looking at it and thought, "Oh, thank God, relief." But yeah, for us fans, it's brilliant. But without the fans being there, like obviously you go to a lot of games, so it's tougher for you guys that go to the games and can't go than it is for someone like myself who's like, classic armchair fan. So
yeah, it's still quite difficult to watch. I think sometimes I think of the game and I think without the fans, it's like I watched the boxing last night as well, and I wanted to turn it off. It's just different.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like for me, like, and that fake noise, it just doesn't really do it for me. Like sometimes I think, but having said that, on the flip side of that, there's been some absolute corkers since there was no fans. There's been goals coming everywhere.
Yeah, loads of goals. Absolutely, like if you want, if you want to watch some great goals like they score on a training ground, like for fun, then this is perfect. But yeah, I'm with you. When Man United are playing, I sort of the noise doesn't really bother me that much because I'm sort of focused on a game. But if I try and watch a neutral game, for me, I'm sort of like, this is it. You can hear them screaming when they get hurt. It's a bit much, yeah.
So this next part of the podcast I come up with all myself. This is called Red Devil 9 to 5. I'm going to give you some names of some former Man United players, and I want you to tell me what you think they would do if they weren't a footballer.
Wow.
Expand the imagination as much as you want. Go wild.
Okay, yeah.
So first up is Teddy Sheringham.
Teddy Sheringham. PE teacher, I think. He looks like... That's no offence to any PE teachers out there. Teddy's obviously, as well as being a Spurs legend, he's obviously a Man United legend as well. So yeah, I can imagine him being the sort of PE teacher that turns a blind eye if you don't run all the way to the fence and back. But it's like teaching the kids how to score from like 600 yards out, and then go do it again, sir. Sorry, yeah, PE teacher.
Fantastic. So, next one, Dennis Irwin, postman.
Dennis Irwin, postman, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I can imagine Irwin turning up in a big Royal Mail jacket going, sign for that, please, mate.
Yeah, but really quietly. It's like,
sign for that, please, mate.
What, mate? Yeah. I knocked, but you couldn't hear his knock, so you had to go down to the Royal Mail office and get to the party. Yeah, no, he's definitely a postman, isn't he? I'm surprised he wasn't probably part-time while he was playing at United. Early mornings, that's right up his street, I reckon.
So, next up, Peter Schmeichel.
Oh, Peter Schmeichel. Do you remember those Man United? Do you remember those those football adverts? And it showed you what the footballers would be like if it were. Yeah. I think he might be a pig farmer or a butcher or something like that. But yeah, I'll go with like a farmer. I reckon he's shouting at the cows and the pigs because they're not in the right position or something like that.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, I can see that. Plus, I reckon he looked good in a big pair of waders.
So this next one, I think he would always be. If he wasn't a footballer, he'd be in the spotlight somehow. Beckham. He would be on telly somehow, I reckon. He'd be like a model or something, wouldn't he?
Band maybe, like the one, bit like Victoria, probably like one who wasn't like very good at singing, but
but in it anyway, yeah.
He's always there, yeah. There for a few quid as well. Like he's obviously he's made so much money. Like he obviously does a lot of charity work, so he's a great human being. I'd say pop star or maybe like. He's been in films and his voice, his accent just sort of, it shows him up, doesn't it? If he could do accents, like pretend to be someone else, then I'd say actor. But yeah, singing probably he can get away with doing some dancing in the background. Yeah.
Okay, good. So now is time for On Me Head Son, Not Off Me Head Son. This is a 1 minute quick fire round. You've got a minute to answer as many questions as you possibly can about ex-retired footballers' heads, like headers, haircuts and stuff. Tom is in the lead with 5. He beat Chris Kirkland, who got 3 last week. I'm just setting the timer here. Technology is just not my thing, to be honest.
That's right. I'll tell you once it's been 60 seconds if you like. Once I've got more than 5.
We're working on fergie time. Here we go. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, let me get my pen to tick as well.
Oh, okay.
You know, not strong on maths either. But right, so here we go. What former Newcastle player was the face of L'Oreal?
David Ginola.
Yes. Which former Tottenham and Rangers star famously wore a face mask while playing for Lazio?
Gaza.
Yeah. Who has scored 53 Premier League headed goals, the current record?
Duncan Ferguson.
Crouch. Who has more Premier League goals, Tim Cahill or Robbie Fowler headed?
Oh, Tim Cahill.
Yes. How many Premier League goals did Kevin Campbell score his head? 22, 10 or 4?
4.
It was 22. In the 2010 League Cup second leg semi-final between United and City, who scored the injury time headed winner for Manchester United?
Darren Fletcher.
It was Rooney. Who scored 2 headers in a hat-trick in 2010 in the 3-2 Man United versus Liverpool at Old Trafford Premier League game?
Rooney.
Berbatov. Who headed England's victory in a 1-0 win against Germany at Euro 2000? I'll let you have it if you can get it.
Euro 2000. Gerrard.
Shearer.
Ah.
They're not as easy as they sound. 1, 2, 3. No. So you are joint second with Chris Kirkland.
So that's a good place to be. Joint with
which isn't a bad accolade.
Joint second and joint bottom, yeah. I'm optimistic.
Okay, so you chose a classic retro game, which was Palace versus United. 25th of January 1995, you told me, didn't you? You knew the exact date.
Right, yep.
And you knew that because you went.
I was there, yeah. I was lucky enough. And not from the footballing spectacle, because it's a pretty boring game as I remember. But yeah, I mean, obviously that game, if you just read it in its own right, doesn't look like much. But the big thing about that game was the Eric Cantona kung fu kick into the ground.
Yeah, exactly. I would have loved to have been there for that.
I was with my uncle, so my uncle got me and him tickets to go and watch the game. He's a Crystal Palace fan, and I remember my mum saying, "You have to take the day off school because there's a surprise. You've got a surprise. You're going to go and see your auntie and uncle," which it was great, but I didn't think. I was like, oh. It was also my cycling proficiency day at school that day, so I didn't get to do that. All those years, and I was a postman, so that's why that career didn't last that long.
With Dennis Irwin.
With me and Dennis on the through the streets of Cliftonville. Yeah, it's yeah. So when I got there, they told me I was going to watch that game, and I was like, oh, fantastic, amazing. I think I was 11. Yeah, no, I was 10, just about 10, 11. So it was like an early birthday present for me. So
lovely.
It's amazing just walking to the ground, like that buzz you get. Like I imagine you still get it to this day. You walk into
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it walking to the ground on match day.
Yeah, and like just being like 10 years of age and sort of going to see your team, Man United, my first ever game, in the lights at Selhurst Park as well. It was, it's one of those grounds that looks like it wouldn't look out of place in like non-league football. It's it's got the big big stand and then everything else looks a bit ramshackle. But yeah, we were sat opposite, like directly opposite, where the actual incident took place. So, yeah.
Oh, nice. So yes. So as you say, it was a lackluster game, really, wasn't it? I think it ended 1-1. Southgate scored an equaliser, I think.
Yeah, we got. I can't remember what he got sent off for. I think it was like he elbowed. I think it's like in my mind. It's Richard Shaw. They went up, and I think he.
Yeah,
elbowed.
That's it. Shaw.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then just as he was going off on the sidelines, it's like one of those things. The fans are obviously going to give him some jip, but I don't know how he heard that one bloke say what he said because it's so loud in a football ground. and he's heard him say that specifically, you know, target. I know obviously the use is directed at Eric Cantona, that's easy, but spotting a bloke out of the corner of your eye as you're walking up and pinpointing him in the crowd to be able to land a kick on him was pretty impressive. So, and in this day and age, like, it wasn't acceptable back then, but he gained hero status after that.
Yeah, and then like he came back against Liverpool after his ban and scored, and then climbed up a pole because that's normal. Yeah. That's just normal behaviour.
He just, yeah, exactly, yeah, absolutely fine. Like, what do you mean you can't climb up the pole? Like, I've just kicked a bloke in the crowd and I'm playing again. Like, where's your bar? Where's the level? You know, like what's normal? But yeah, I just remember him being. He got community service, I think, and did, you know, like whatever it was. Imagine that guy coming up and you're outside your house and he's picking up litter. He'd just be like, "Oh my god!" Like cleaning the roundabouts around like Withenshaw or something like that.
Yeah. Cantona painting your fence.
It's the wrong colour, Eric. And he just like kick your fence down and then just moved on. But yeah, I mean, he was my hero before that because I just like my mum every Christmas bought me the season review like on VHS. So you sort of like I was always 18 months behind on the games. You know? I was like, "Oh, we beat Leeds last week," and they're like, "Yeah, they haven't been in the Premier League for 3 years." But yeah, so it's sort of like always, yeah, like every game because you got it all. You got like even the rubbish games that didn't make it onto the telly, and Man United are pretty much on every week, aren't they? Like they were anyway.
Yeah.
They're sort of up against a bit more now in terms of rivalry, but I sort of after that it was sort of even more like just loved him so much because that guy was a villain. The geezer in the crowd became the villain, and Eric Cantona was a hero. And you think like nowadays he would be banned from football forever.
Oh, yeah.
And like he wouldn't get near a game of football, like even if it was down the park, you know, he just wouldn't be allowed.
Even if you did some of those tackles that were going on back in those days, you wouldn't see the light of a football pitch for about 10 years. Vinnie Jones and stuff like that.
Yeah, you see that clip? I think it's Eric. I think Vinnie Jones sort of slide tackles Eric Cantona at Selhurst Park, and Eric Cantona gets up and it's like I think he's like if it's anyone else on the pitch, I think he's going to like lay into. He sees Vinnie Jones and goes, "Yeah, whatever, don't do that again."
But just the difference between then and now, he gets up.
Yeah.
He just gets up.
You'd be reading about that on Twitter for 6 months, wouldn't you? Like,
yeah, exactly. Now you'd be checking their pulse and they'll be rolling around for about 2 hours. But yeah,
when he's rolling, just trying to bandage him as he's rolling, just to in the referee's mind. But yeah, I think they're obviously different. They're sort of different. You know, the game's moved on a lot now from where it was, and the skills moved on, and the sort of the tactics, and you know, being like that sort of enforcer doesn't really exist anymore. I don't really know that many teams that have got like a Roy Keane or a Vinnie Jones, say for instance. You know.
Yeah, like your sort of Arsenal back four, that wouldn't happen now, would it? You know, they were just like your granddad. Good.
Yeah,
it's so good. They're solid.
Exactly, and it didn't matter if they were injured; they still played. Do you know what I mean? It was like Tony Adams was obviously, now we know, and was like probably drunk a lot of the time, and still like one of the best centre backs in the country. And,
yeah, absolutely fantastic, and very famous, of course, for putting their arms up, weren't they? They always were trying to catch people offside.
Full Monty.
Perfect symmetry.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hold back four, but so we'll wrap up with you chose Alex Ferguson. Just tell us why you chose him, and why you chose him, why he's special to you as a manager.
Yeah, I think obviously I touched on it at the beginning to say that obviously once I got into football, he was the current manager of Manchester United, and I think just being spoilt for so many years as a Man United fan, and like some teams, like their managers, they're not the main thing of the club. It's like their star player is the main thing, or their history is the main thing, or like their trophy they won 28 years ago is the main thing. And Ferguson was always the biggest thing at Man United. And you think of all the legends that they had playing for them, no one got above him. If anyone stepped out of line, they were see you later. They were, he weren't fighting to sell people like players like Kanchelskis, Paul Ince, Roy Keane, just gone. Yeah. David Beckham, see you later. Like, no one's bigger than me here, son. Like, don't care who your girlfriend is. Don't care what superstar band they're in.
I always think maybe, like, a lot of people said, well, I raised this question before, and a lot of people said that maybe, like, would have done what he would have done anyway. But maybe if Gazza would have gone to United, maybe Ferguson might have reined him in, possibly. Because he had that, Ferguson was like that. You didn't really see any of the Man. I know Beckham was wearing a dress and that, wasn't he? But you never really saw any of the Man United players.
Yeah, that's fine. You can sort of do that, and you don't have to have a word with a player because they're absolutely in their right to do that. But in the 90s, it'd be like dilemma. But yeah, I think Gazza at Man United. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Ferguson is obviously a miracle worker with some of the things he got out of those players, but I think if someone's that determined to sort of, like, he was brilliant, and I don't think, like Bobby Robson was one of his sort of his favourite managers, and and obviously got a lot of good out of him. But yeah, I don't know. Like, he's like a tortured genius, wasn't he? Really, Gazza. Yeah. It's one of those things. I don't know. But yeah, it'd be great to see him at Old Trafford. Like, linking up. But we probably wouldn't have got cancer now then, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, everything sort of happens for a reason, doesn't it?
And that geezer at Crystal Palace would have been a lot happier,
Yeah, but then again, down the pub now, he wouldn't be able to go, there's the scar, mate. There's the boot marks.
You gave me that. Yeah. That geezer taking my fences. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for coming on, mate. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ben. It's been amazing. I've been looking forward to this. So, hopefully it's really, really good. I just wanted to say, like, doing things like this during lockdown, it means a lot to people, I think, sort of something to look forward to, something to sort of, it's just a bit different from doing a quiz on Zoom. And I know the answers to everything. Like, ask me how many Friends episodes there are, I know everything. So, no, it is blinding, mate, and I hope it continues to succeed. Getting Chris Kirkland on, I didn't think you could top that, but obviously you've had me and Tom on now, so.
Yeah, exactly. The only way is up. But yeah, thanks for those words, mate, and cheers for coming on. And the posters stayed up, so things are looking up, man.
Exactly. Yeah, no, well done. It's just for that alone, really, just keeping the poster up. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was What I Hit, Son, the Retro Football podcast for retro football fans. It's still a tongue twister, but yeah, I'll see you all next time. And thanks again, Richie, for coming on, mate.
See you later. Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.